Hi, I'm Bill Hunt. Earlier we taped an interview with Carrie Ann Heinz, an environmental planner here at St. Mary's County Government. Carrie Ann provided an introduction to the critical area, and we'd like to play that interview for you now.
Hello, my name is Carrie Heinz, and I'm an environmental planner here at the county. Chances are, if you reside within the critical area and if you've applied for a permit, you've either spoken to me or one of my coworkers. We get a lot of questions here at the county regarding what you can and can't do in the critical area, including what is the critical area. I'd like to start by answering some of those basic questions. For later segments, we're going to touch on topics such as floodplain management, buffer management plans, and other topics as well. So without further ado, I'd like to provide a very quick question and answer session that will hopefully give you some good background information.
Well, that was a great introduction. Almost some questions here. What exactly is the Critical Area Program and why is it important?
The Critical Area Act was passed in 1984, and it marked the first time that state and local governments jointly addressed the impacts of land development on habitat and aquatic resources. The law identified the critical area as all land within 1,000 feet of mean high water. That includes tidal waters and the landward edge of tidal wetlands. The law created a statewide critical area program and a critical area commission to oversee the development and implementation of land use goals and programs directed towards critical area. The program had the following goals: to minimize the adverse impacts on water quality that result from pollutants that are discharged from sources or conveyances that have runoff from the surrounding lands; to conserve fish and wildlife and plant habitat within the critical area; to establish land use policies for development of the critical area, which accommodate growth and also address the fact that even if pollution is controlled, the number, movement, and activities of persons within the critical area can create adverse environmental impacts.
What does this mean to individual homeowners?
Good question. Homes located within the critical area are subject to a specific set of development restrictions. For example, any proposed development within the critical area requires a review by one of the environmental planners here at the county. Either myself or my coworker will review a project application to make sure that the development request meets all the necessary applicable rules and regulations.
What are some examples of items that require permitting?
As I mentioned above, any development activity would require a permit. Development activities may be something as major as constructing a new home or adding on to an additional structure. Or it may be less straightforward, such as installing a small shed or doing overlot grading on a property.
Would I need to obtain a permit to mow my grass or install a garden in the critical area?
You are more than welcome to continue to mow your existing grass, prune your existing garden beds, and activities such as that. You wouldn't need a permit for. If a homeowner wanted to install a small garden or something on their property, they're more than welcome to do that. So long as that the installation of the garden doesn't require the removal of any existing vegetation. If it does, you just need to come into our office and talk to us about it first.
From what I understand, home gardens, since they are an enjoyable part of home ownership, are certainly allowed.
Yes, we would definitely encourage that.
I've heard others talk about something called the Critical Area Buffer, or buffer. Where is this located?
The critical area buffer is the first 100 feet from the edge of tidal waters or tidal wetlands. It's generally the most environmentally sensitive part of the critical area. The reason why it's considered so environmentally sensitive and so useful is that these buffer areas are generally forested, or at least they have some kind of trees and shrubs on them. And what happens is if pollution or runoff or anything like that comes from the street and down through your property, the idea is that it would hit these buffer areas and kind of be filtered out before it reaches, a body of water. So it greatly improves the water quality. In general, no disturbance is allowed in the critical area buffer. However, you can have development be permitted through the seeking of a variance from the Board of Appeals. This is done on a case-by-case basis and basically involves you going before board members and discussing why you need the development activity on your property. This is kind of an involved process, so what we would like to do in the future is have a nice little segment detailing, what is the Board of Appeals variance application process? What does that entail? So this is just a very brief description. If it is determined by the Board of Appeals that you are allowed to have a variance, then homeowners can expect that there would be some mitigation required. Usually this would be in the form of trees and shrubs planted on the property in order to offset the development activity that's been permitted. Additionally, in the critical area buffer, trees may only be removed if they are diseased or in imminent danger of falling and damaging a structure, a pier or a house or something like that. Staff members may ask the homeowners for certification from a licensed forester to determine that the trees are in fact diseased. But you can expect that if you are permitted to remove a tree from this buffer area, that you would need to plant one back in its stead. We often get asked questions about whether or not invasive species are permitted to be removed from the buffer area. They are permitted to be removed as long as you're hand clearing, so you can't bring like a bobcat down and kind of roll over the whole area. So what we would ask is that you come in with the area that you would like to remove the invasive species from, indicated on a site plan. One of the environmental permit reviewers will review it, and then we'll let you know, if there is mitigation required, if there's not, what are the requirements of your permit application. So just so homeowners know, there are things that they can do in the buffer.